Spacebird Media.
Why do so many people find solace in the crackle of a vinyl record? Let's dive in. This isn't just another vinyl podcast, it's a journey into the heart of recovery, through the universal language of music. Each week we share powerful stories of overcoming addiction and life's toughest challenges. Together, we'll uncover how the warmth of vinyl can guide us through moments of vulnerability and strength. So, drop the needle, lean in, and let the music heal. Let's get started.
This is Records in Recovery.
And welcome to Records and Recovery, where we love to talk about all things that we love about music, the songs that inspire us, the bands that also we look up to just because they seem to say what our hearts have been feeling. And anytime we get a chance to talk to those who make the music, it also makes a big difference because then we get even more so inspired behind what's happening. So this week, you know him from Ozzy's band, from Whitesnake, Quiet Riot. The list goes on and on. He's an author, recently off of the Back to the Beginning tour, the farewell tour for Black Sabbath, and Ozzy welcoming bassist Rudy Sarzo to Records in Recovery. Hey, buddy.
Hey, it's great to be here for the Black Sabbath. Oh, yeah, one show, one time only. That's it, the final bow for Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah.
So tell me about that day, because I was watching quite a bit of it, and it just, with especially the super groups, because you got to be involved in that. What was, tell me all the emotions that I know had to been going through you.
Yeah, it all started like back in October. I got a text from Tom Morello, who was the musical director for both super groups, A and B, and texted me that Sharon Ozzy wanted me to participate in this event on July 5th, and if I was available. And I responded immediately. And once that was settled, that I'm in, I kept running into Tom a few times in LA. You know, he would give me an update. Yeah, everything's coming along really nice. Then I started getting the set list for the songs. This is about maybe the beginning of the year. And some songs kept getting added. I wound up playing like an 8 songs. Yeah, I did the whole set for the B, what is called the super group B. There was 2, A and B, and I went there with one main motivation, which was to say thank you to Ozzy and Sharon, to show my gratitude and support. Then I get there and I realize that everybody else is there for the same reason.
Right.
Because I was not alone. Everybody has definitely many things to be grateful about to Ozzy, Sharon, Black Sabbath. Mine goes back to me joining Ozzy in 1981, thanks to Randy Rhoads. And I was glad, to have been there to represent that era of the band, the Randy, basically the second version, because the first one was Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley, and then Tommy Aldridge and I came in, and we did the American tour and some touring in Europe and so on in 81 to 82. And then when Randy passed away, I left the group. And but it was, let's put it this way, it was never what we did while Randy was with us has never been matched by any, no other band has ever matched that.
Right.
Magic and chemistry and musicality and just, it was unbelievable. It was like, wow. I can't even put it into words. Imagine the greatest thing that ever happened to you musically.
Yep.
Then it's gone, and then you spend the rest of your career trying to find some of that magic in it. And I say magic because there's so many elements. It's really a blessing, is what it was for me to be there. But there's certain elements that are just like unexplainable. supernatural,
Yeah.
elements of how things worked, especially on stage and even off stage, you know. And once Randy was not there anymore, I lost that completely.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. Well, and obviously too, I mean, you could see the emotion in the crowd, people responsive to pretty much everything that was happening, but especially during Ozzy's performances. In that for you, what was that? Because obviously backstage, I would think the emotion is just as big because you guys have been with him through it all.
Well, through not necessarily, not necessarily for me, all because Ozzy, after 82, he kept going and,
Yeah.
he had more success and different experiences that I was not there for. So, but at least for that portion
Yeah.
of his career, I was there. Uh, what was it like? I had not been witness to the rehearsals. And so I had no idea what was going to happen with Ozzy. Uh, I had seen him at the photo session that we all did together,
Hmm.
and I got to say thank you. And Sharon was way more accessible because she did not have to rehearse. Ozzy was rehearsing a lot of the time.
Sure.
That we were also rehearsing, you know, uh, with our own bands and stuff. And but Sharon, she was very accessible. She wanted, to make sure everything was running properly, like she always always done. And she was there to meet and greet everybody and to thank them for being there and so on. So, but as far as Ozzy, I just did not know what was going to happen. What was it going to be like? So I'm watching him, and the first note comes out of his lips, and I'm in awe. I can't believe he's actually singing, and he's singing amazing. He's
Hmm.
just amazing. It was like it's a miracle. I thought
Yeah.
it was a miracle. I still think it's a miracle. Just to watch him do that under his health
Yeah.
conditions. So, uh, so I was overjoyed. I was relieved, and to see him taking his final bow was such a victory. You know, but then again, people were asking me before, what do you think is going to happen? I would say, well, from knowing Ozzy, from being with him in the band, he's the type of guy that if there's a goal to be met, he'll prepare himself for that.
Mm.
He's very driven,
Yeah.
goal oriented, driven, and so I knew somehow, some way, he was going to be performing, but but I did not think it was going to be at that such high level
Yeah.
as he did. He really surprised me, and I think it surprised everybody else. Once he started singing, it was like, good. The only difference is it's just sitting in a throne.
Yeah.
But as far as his attitude, his energy, his charisma, it was all there. Unbelievable.
Yeah, so good. Talking with Rudy Sarzo this week on Records and Recovery. Rudy, as we talk about, the most recent performance, take me back to the early days when, young Rudy was listening to music. What were those artists or bands or albums that inspired you to want to play?
Well, to want to play, that's an interesting subject because I've been a fan of music since I was a child, since I first heard music. And I happened to be in Cuba at the time. I was born in Cuba, and my family left in 61, and I was born in 1950. So there's like a 10-year period that to me, music was basically what I heard locally, Cuban music, Afro-Cuban music. And on television, we had some, international artists performing. We had a little bit of rock in Spanish when rock and roll tours right before the revolution got very popular in Cuba. We had our own rock in Spanish
Hmm.
uh, artists, but it was more kid or youth oriented, you know, teenager type of music. I wasn't even a teenager yet, but the bulk of the music was definitely big band, Latin music, orchestra,
Yeah.
Latin music with a lot of percussion. Uh, Latin bands did not have drummers. They had a percussion section.
Yeah.
So that's what rock and roll brought to me. Once I started like getting into rock, was like, drummers, actually a rhythm section based on the drums and the bass guitar. And so when we moved to the United States in 1961, was pre-Beatles. So, there was some rock on the radio, kind of like the Four Seasons and a little bit of Motown, that was just getting started. And then by 1964, I was living in New Jersey. We have been relocated from Miami to New Jersey. And that's, like all of a sudden this door opens wide,
Mm.
which was the British invasion, because it wasn't just the Beatles, it was everybody else that came along
Yep.
from, the Stones and the Kinks and the Dave Clark Five and Freddie and the Dreamers and the Animals and so it was like now, okay, now there is a community. And I gotta tell you, living in New Jersey, that's what brought all of our different cultures that I went to school with. And basically in New Jersey, the Italian kids hung out with each other, and the Germans and the Irish, and everybody hung out with little cultural groups. And once the British invasion came in, all the barriers went down. We'll start hanging out with each other and depending on each other to learn something new, to bring something to the table. Like learning a new chord.
Yep.
What's that chord in the beat song? Well, it's a dominant seven. Oh, okay. Hey, how do you play that? Somebody teaching me how to tune the guitar, which took me years to find somebody who was kind enough to do that. Things like that. Uh, so yeah, so that's how I got into it. It was more of a social network at the time, and then I fell in love with the instrument and really getting to slowly becomes a part of you, it became a part of my body, an extension of my soul. The
Yeah.
instrument, it's just an instrument of communication
Sure.
to express yourself.
Yeah, and I think that, as a drummer, most people don't, they just think you're just banging on, pots and pans and whatever until you get a drum set and then you're just making lots of noise. But it is a part of your body, like whether you're playing a bass or a guitar, like it is an extension of expression. And I oftentimes tell my kids, you're really spoiled in the fact that you don't have to listen to every song. You can just go to the internet and pull up the chord charts or, the lead sheet or whatever. And my son, who's learning, he's being very methodical about he'll listen and then he'll go if he needs help, if he's stuck. But for the most part, he is trying to figure it out by ear, which is, how we all learned. And I love that because I feel like that, especially a musician, needs to know all the nuances, right? If you don't have the feel, then the song itself is missing something.
Yeah, I go to YouTube every morning to seek new information, and and sometimes it's kind of like wow, it's like really. I
Hmm.
mean, 'cause we got 12 notes,
Yeah.
you know. It's basically it's not as much new information, but a different perception of the 12 notes that we all are given to play,
Right.
you know. Uh, and and sometimes it's like, wow, okay, that is great. I I had never looked at it that way, but now I'm going to take some of that and apply it to what I do.
Yeah.
Some of that perception. You know,
How much of that for you, Rudy, is from your faith? Like, is there ever that moment where you feel like you have that Holy Spirit prompting on a chord progression or something that you're just feeling? Or is it still very mechanical as far as, hey, these are the notes on the page, or this is, the progression that I'm used to, or how does that come for you?
well, that's the beauty of it. It's never mechanical. For me, it's not. I know that sometimes it might have been early on, but once I understood bringing my faith into my music that I'm playing,
Yeah.
it became a simple formula. Basically, come prepared,
Yep.
know what you're going to be doing, and then let God take over.
Yep.
Very simple, So uh, it has really helped me to navigate situations where people look at me and they go, "What? Weren't you nervous?" And go, "I was prepared. I put the time into it."
Yeah.
I mean, barring any technical difficulties, I'm going to be okay. And if it's technical, it's beyond my control.
Hmm.
And then I say it, and then I just when I let God take over. And to me, it's multi-layered, meaning because I can go back to the uh, the principles of physics. You got the sound, the word, waves, everything that we do starts us starts as a thought,
Yeah.
and then it becomes manifests itself as material particles. You got waves and particles, but it's the waves that manifest the particle. It's the thought that manifests. Whether it's that record that is right behind you, Mental
Hmm.
Health, Quiet Riot, there was a lot of thinking going on onto that record, from the songwriting to the production to me deciding to leave Ozzy to join what became known as the mental health version of Quiet Riot. See, what happened was uh, I was playing with Ozzy, and I get a phone call from Kevin DuBrow, the singer from Quiet Riot, who at the time was in the studio with his band called DuBrow. I had played in Dubrow for about 8 months before I joined Ozzy, and I was living with Kevin, so I was very familiar with everything about Dubrow. So Kevin gives me a call and said, "Hey, listen, how would you like to come down and it's a possible record deal? We're in the studio. How would you like to come down and record the track Thunderbird?" So I knew the song. Again, I was prepared, and I knew what tone I needed and everything, but it was just that one song.
Hmm.
And so I show up, and there's Frankie Pinelli, who he and we had a history dating back 10 years prior to us going in the studio to record Thunderbird. Carlos, I had never met him, but I knew about him from his band called Snow, who was in the same circuit as Dubrow. So I did some shows with Dubrow and Snow before I joined Ozzy.
Hmm.
Now, at the time, I'm still a member of Ozzy, and I'm getting ready to record "Speak of the Devil," which is the Black Sabbath re-recordings done by Ozzy.
Hmm.
That was 1982, also, and it was live in at the Ritz in New York. Okay, so I get there, and couple of takes, we did Thunderbird, and the producer goes, "Well, we got a few hours left on the session. Do you remember any of the old Quiet Riot songs?" Like, and the only one wound up on the record from the Randy Rhoads era, which is "Slave by Cadillac," which Kevin wrote.
Hmm.
So again, we do a couple of passes, bam, done, and then two more. Uh, Loves the Bitch and Let's Get Crazy. By the time I left that session, and again, the band was still called Bro. I was in Ozzy. I had done four songs that are on the Mental Health record. And so I go to New York to start working on the Speak of the Devil with Ozzy, Tommy Aldrich, and Brad Gillis. But the thought of playing with Frankie and Kevin kept lingering in my mind because, once Randy passed away, I lost
Yeah.
that connection to somebody who I had struggled with to make it. And then finally, he, of course, he goes before me, join Ozzy, writes those two iconic records, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. And then he recommends me to Ozzy and Sharon, and I joined the band. But, I can still look at Randy and go, wow, I can't believe this. Just a few months ago, we were literally banging our heads against the wall to get the attention of the music industry in LA, and nobody cared. And look at what we're doing now together.
Yeah.
Whereas Tommy Aldridge and Ozzy, they had success before that. Ozzy, of course, had Black Sabbath. He had been in the band for over 15 years,
Hmm.
successfully, many records, and Tommy Aldridge, and with Black Oak, Arkansas, Gary Moore, Pat Travers, and all of that, seasoned veteran musician. With me, I wasn't. I had not done the heavy lifting yet of going in the studio, record an album, take it on the road, and reach some level of success.
Yep.
So I needed to accomplish that. I really did. So to be honest with you, after Randy was passed on, I had lost the joy of making music.
Yeah.
Because to be playing those songs without him, it was painful.
Yeah.
I gotta give so much credit to Ozzy for being able to every night get up there and sing those songs,
Hmm.
put his heart into it. Because me, I could always hide behind the bass and put my head down and do my head banging and play.
Yeah.
But for Ozzy, just to go deep inside his soul to sing those songs without Randy being there, I can't even imagine how tough that was for him.
Yeah.
And I was there, you know. So I know it was tough, but really, really, it was hard for me to put myself in his shoes to go out there and
Yeah.
sing it, go out there and and do it because it's your body. Your body is your instrument.
Yeah.
When your body's broken, it's really hard to use it to express yourself.
Rudy Sarzo, as we're hanging out talking on Records and Recovery. Rudy, um, in addition, I know how hard it is trying to play when your bandmate's gone. What was God saying to you during that time to help your heart heal off stage?
I that's a really good question because it really did not become clear to me what our mission was to become. Now, decades later, I get it. I understand. Maybe even though I had an epiphany and my relationship with God was, I had given control up my life to God right before I joined Ozzy.
Hmm.
And so that move, that release, letting go was was responsible for me getting to the next level. The
Yeah.
doors open. Okay, you're ready now, spiritually, you know. And but I was traumatized. We were all traumatized in different ways, and we all dealt with it in different ways, to survive it. And it wasn't until I I wrote a book about 20 years ago, and I was able to get closure by writing the book and putting it all down on paper.
Yeah.
It was due to me revisiting while I was writing it. Randy was alive very much, and in my, you know, in my alternate reality
Yeah.
that I went into to write the book, to be there. And by the time that I wrote the end, I got the unexpected closure, and it was like this weight was lifted from my shoulders that had been there for for 20 years ago, and yeah, for 20 years, for over 20 years of Randy's passing,
Hmm.
and then now playing with Quiet Riot, I have a responsibility that I did not have before, which is to go on stage and celebrate the legacy of the band
Hmm.
and the memories of Frankie Banali and Kevin Dubrow and Randy Rhoads. it's not just about me going on tour, pretending to be a rock star or whatever. No, no, it's way bigger than that. It's all about celebrating the legacy and the memory
Yeah. So
and
good.
members.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah,
Well, and I know during the 80s, especially as someone who grew up in the church, there was kind of this, negative press because like youth groups and big pastors were like, yes, rock and roll is evil and all these emblems and da da da. Obviously, as someone who was of faith, but also inside that world, what was that like for you? Was it a personal attack? Do you feel like that it was just, overshadowing on something that just was bigger than the church at that time? I mean, what was kind of going on behind the scenes for you?
it never bothered me whatever outsiders thought of what we happened to be doing, which for me was either Ozzy or Quiet Riot or Whitesnake or just rock and roll in general, because I always saw it that if God did not intend me to be there, once I gave up control to God
Yeah.
for carrying me through my career,
Yeah.
God would have never put me in an evil place.
Right.
If I'm here, if I'm playing with Ozzy, it's because this is where I should be, and it's the best place. I gotta tell you, the generosity and kindness from Ozzy and Sharon from the very first day that I joined the band were never equal by anybody.
Mhm.
The after during my career, I'm
Yeah.
talking about by now I've been doing this for 44 years since 1981. It's never been equal. I when I auditioned for Ozzy that morning, I woke up. I had been sleeping in Kevin DuBrose's spare bedroom in his apartment
Mhm.
on the floor, on the floor. And I woke up and Randy came over and we went over a couple of songs a few times and we went to audition. I passed the audition. I went over with Randy. He drove me up to Sharon's family home in the Hollywood Hills. And, they were trying to get to know me quick because we had like 10 days before we hit the road.
Right.
And I'm talking about a time where that music was completely new.
Mhm.
Nowadays, you find 10-year-olds playing Crazy Train on YouTube. Fetus, you see
Right.
Fetus, little baby guitar.
Yeah.
It's like it's such a normal thing. But back then, 44 years ago, the radio wasn't even playing it in LA.
Right.
And then the whole record, I had to learn the whole record and a couple of new songs from Diary of a Madman that wasn't even finished yet, mixing the
Yeah.
mix. So it was like, I got all this information. And then they wanted to know, they needed to know that I was not going to be a bad influence on Ozzy with drinking and drugging. And so, it was like that vetting period.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So after a few hours, everybody goes to their rooms and Randy leaves. He went home and I'm left with Ozzy and I'm still there, and of course, he's getting to know me. I'm getting to know him. And he was charming and fun and funny. And he looks at me and he goes, man, you look like shit. You need some rock and roll clothes. So he leaves the room, the pool room, and he comes back and he pours his suitcase on the pool table.
Yeah.
And he says, grab whatever you want. And I went, and I'm like, I mean, there's stuff that I didn't even want to touch because it was like the holy grail of like, okay, I seen this on an album cover and I seen that in a magazine and him, it's
Yeah.
like pick, but just make sure that I had a couple of things so I could wear them, for photo sessions and so on,
Mhm.
you know. And then uh, I asked Ozzy, well, can you give me a ride? Because I thought, I better go back to sleeping on the floor in Kevin's place. And he goes, "Oh man, I don't drive." By that time we were outside in the courtyard of the house, and he goes, "But Points at a bungalow. And he says, "Yeah, but you can go sleep there." And I'm going, "Oh, good. Well, I don't have any choice. I'm gonna try that."
Yeah.
And so I'm laying in bed, and I'm fully dressed because I didn't want, in case somebody, let's say a security guard, because they had security,
Right.
would find me sleeping in there and just kick me out because I just joined the band. Not
Sure.
everybody. Where's this guy? And so eventually I fall asleep, and in the morning I hear her knocking on my door, and Sharon said, "Rudy, would you come and join us for breakfast?" So I said, "Okay." I washed my face a little bit and walked in the kitchen. Is the whole family is sitting there and Ozzy, they're having breakfast, and there was a spot right next to her dad, Don Arden, who
Hmm.
was like a big record executive manager. He was like the driving force behind a lot of the band's business success. He had ELO, he had Air Supply, Ozzy. Now he had been managing Black Sabbath. He was a very successful, very powerful man in the business. And he's there on his phone yelling at some record guy about something. And I'm sitting there, and uh, the cook brings some eggs and puts it in front of me. And they had this Great Dane named Jet, after
Hmm.
the label Jet Records. And he comes over and starts eating my breakfast. And Dunn hangs up the phone and looks at me and goes, "Jet likes you. I think you're okay."
That's
And
fantastic.
that's how I was accepted into the family.
Yeah. That's awesome. Rudy, before I let you go, man, tell me, what do you love about where you are with God right now?
Oh my God. That is a great question. What do I love everything. I'm at peace. I'm grateful. And I feel like I'm just getting started here.
Yeah. It's great. Well, and as a fellow rock and roller who also is a worship leader, thank you for being bold in your faith, because I know that, for my whole life, I was back and forth with, I love rock and roll, but I love the Lord. I love rock and roll, but, while my faith was always a huge part of it, my identity was rock and roll music. I mean, I became a drummer because of listening to rock and roll records, and I was a Beatles kid and all of that. So, people like you, people like Alice Cooper, Mark Slaughter, people that have come out about their faith. I just want to personally say thank you for all of the rockheads that are out there that need to know that it's okay to still listen and love rock and roll music as God intended, but allowing our lifestyle and identity to be in Christ. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Like I said before, just come prepared. Show up ready to rock, and let God take over.
Amen. Rudy Sarzo has been our guest. Thanks so much for your time, bud.
God bless you.
Records and Recovery is a Spacebird Media production and a part of the Thesis Radio Network. Find more episodes anywhere you listen to podcasts or at thesis.com.